Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, we ask that you kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices or place them on silent. Thank you.
Moses came to the conclusion toward the end of his life that, according to Deuteronomy 29:28, the mysteries belong to God. There are limitations to knowledge and comprehension. In the face of such mysteries, we recite the words of Job: Adonai has given and Adonai has taken. And we continue to place our faith in God and in the ultimate meaning of life. We have the ability to relate the ways that a person's life has affected our own. For as Moses assured us, the revealed things belong to us and to our children. The Jewish people respond to death with 3 words of blessing. In English, the words mean, "Praised is the judge of truth." Let us begin the service with the wisdom of our tradition. Please repeat these words of blessing after me. Baruch, Dayan, Ha-Emet. Praised is the judge of truth. As we are told in Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing, as it was when you and Marshall first met, a time for wailing, a time for birthing, and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. The time of mourning is a very complicated time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. And we begin our service with the recitation of psalms and prayers, linking Marshall's life with the thousands of years of our tradition, the people Israel, and the eternity of God. Psalm 23. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binot deshe yar bitzeni, al me menuchot yenahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'magle tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeitz al mavet, lo irara ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha, shivtecha umishantecha, hema yenachamuni, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, Taruch lefanai shulchan neged tzorerai. Dishanta vashemen roshi. Dishanta vashemen roshi. Dishanta vashemen roshi. Kosi rivaya. Achtov vachesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai Vishavti beveit Adonai. Vishavti beveit Adonai. Leorech yamim. If you are able, please join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Torat emet hayata befihu, va'avla lo nimtza vis fatav. B'shalom uvmimshor halachiti verabim heshiv me'avon. True instruction was on his lips, and he did not give voice to injustice. He walked with Adonai in peace and honesty. When I was going through the liturgy for the funeral service, I saw that, and it just shouted Marshall to me. A good person, though taken away from us too soon, will rest in peace. For honor in old age does not come from length of life. Honor in old age does not come from length of years, necessarily. Understanding is the gray hair of humanity. A blameless life is ripeness of age. Perfection in limited years is like living for many years. So a good person, though taken from us too soon, will rest in peace. Let us then, with peace of mind, let that good soul rest. I'd like to invite to share a few words with us a very long time and close friend of Marshall's, Art Wilson.
It has been a pleasure to be friends with Marshall. Through the decades, we had a repartee of observations, wit, and humor, and a love of old music, rhythm and blues, and doo-wop. Marshall would call me on the phone. His greeting was, you jive turkey. And we called him Nate, which was an obscure reference to an old Dick Tracy cartoon character. And few of us were in on these in-jokes. We've been friends since high school. Jim Zinman was our mutual friend. The three of us started Drexel University in January 1962 as January freshmen, an opportunity to slip into the quarter-term system excused from our high school senior classes and to return for graduation. So we actually started college a few weeks before graduating high school, which was unique. We pursued our majors as commuting students and were recruited to pledge Delta Iota, a relatively new local fraternity. Jim dropped out, but Marshall and I continued on to the process of becoming a colony of the National Pi Lambda Phi fraternity, ultimately being initiated as a chapter, making us charter members and founders. A legacy of a continuing organization to this day on campus. Marshall served as pledge master and played on our interfraternity basketball team. I was social chairman. We had an active social life, going to parties and dating. Marshall was a great dancer. Even in recent years, we've enjoyed watching Jenny and Marshall dancing. I was with him at the fraternity house when he called his mother and found out that he had received a full scholarship to George Washington University Law School. It was quite a moment. Jim Zinman also enrolled in the same law school, and they were roommates. Jim interrupted his studies to join the Navy for 4 years and then returned to finish law school. They both went on to be successful attorneys. In recent years, Jim's health was challenged, and he passed away in 2019. According to his wishes, he is interred at Arlington National Cemetery. Our family is grateful that through the years, Marshall has successfully represented us in several legal matters. After college and my release from the Army, our friends attended the Sociables, a group for single professionals. I was there when Marshall met Janie. He was so happy. I attended their wedding. I observed their relationship growing, later sharing that observation with Janice, who I married a few years later. We watched both of our families expanding with children and grandchildren, and have happily attended each other's life cycle celebrations. Marshall was so proud of his sons as they chose their own paths and their partners in life. As their families grew, he was thrilled to be the doting grampy to his and Janie's grandchildren. Marshall will be remembered for his professionalism, his goodness, his humor and wit, and dedication to his family. I will miss him and always remember our times together. We extend our sympathies to Marshall's family. May he rest in peace. May his memory be for a blessing.
And now Marshall's sons will join together to share some words.
Hi, I'm Dave. Does everybody hear me? I'm Marshall's oldest son. My dad was and is my hero. He was an amazing husband and father, and I think his lasting legacy for me will be the idea that above all else, family comes first. My dad was a proud Northeast Philly guy. My dad grew up, he was an only child, he had no siblings, and he never really knew his own father. And I think that situation caused him to do whatever he could, whatever was humanly possible, to always be there for his family, and particularly my brothers and I, and later his grandchildren, who he absolutely cherished and adored. And I don't think it came to a surprise to anyone in our family that I wanted to try to follow in my dad's footsteps professionally. And when I did, and then I became a husband and a father myself, I was just astonished at just how much of himself he dedicated to us, to his family, to me, to my brothers. He always made himself available if we needed advice, help with a problem. He never brushed us aside when we needed his input. It did not matter how busy he was or what deadline he may have had at work. He would always put everything else aside when his family needed him. He was always the coach of me and my brother's soccer teams. Everybody hear me? I'm not going to stop talking with the microphone. It's kind of annoying. All right. Basketball, baseball, soccer. And looking back, like, I don't know how he did it, how he found the energy and time to be there for all of us. But he did, and he loved it, because his family came first. My dad was also very proud of his faith. He was very proud to be Jewish. We used to tease him that he was the king of Jewish geography. One of his great skills was his ability to identify any Jewish person on TV or in film. And I can remember me and my brothers watching the news with my dad. This is back when we lived in Voorhees in Alluvium. And he pointed to the guy with the mustache talking on the news on the TV. He said, "You guys, that's Jim Gardner. But his real last name is Goldman, Jewish." And whenever we watched anything, he would make his calls, TV actors, movie stars, less occasionally a Jewish athlete, but it was rare, but it did happen. And he was quick to point out who was Jewish. And what's so funny is as we got older, and with the internet and Google, my brothers and I were able to fact check some of his calls. And we had a lot of laughs, right, at the people he was convinced are Jewish, but actually weren't. I think Joy Behar comes to mind. I think that was the last one that he still couldn't believe it. But one of the things that I'll miss the most is hearing him laugh. He loved making people laugh. But I think more accurately, he loved trying to make other people laugh. And what's so funny is after one of his lines or witty comments, often directed towards or at the expense of the person for whom he was delivering said comment, his mouth would slowly become ajar and a high-pitched howling cackle would explode. And his laugh was so infectious that you would be physically incapable of not laughing back, not because what he said was funny or witty, often it wasn't, but just because of his laugh. And if you could laugh back with him or at him, you were good people, and he would love you forever. He was an incredible grandfather to his 4 grandchildren. And it's funny the things that pop into your mind when you go through like a traumatic event like this. But even with his grandkids, he would do anything to make them smile, to make them laugh. I remember just a year or two ago, my dad had a pacemaker put in. And after that procedure, we were all over for the holidays, and he was explaining to his grandchildren that he had metal implanted with a pulse generator and a battery-powered device under the skin near his collarbone. And my 8-year-old son jumped up and said, "My God, Grandpa, you're just like the Terminator." And for the rest of the day, he went around talking in his best Arnold Schwarzenegger voice and walking like a robot, again, doing anything to make him laugh. And as we are here today to remember and celebrate my dad, I really think that he would not want us to be sad, and that we want everyone to come together and try our hardest to have some laughs and remember all of the fun times we all had with him, to remember all the laughs. And my family, my brothers and I, we want to thank all of our family and dear friends. Many of you have traveled really far to be here today and to be here with us, and we really appreciate it. It means a lot to our family to have you all here with us. And I just want to say to my dad, we know you're listening, we love you, and keep them laughing, Dad. Rest in peace. Thanks.
I only wish. I may have some bleed over with some of the previous comments. I hope you'll forgive me. So we are here this afternoon to mourn the loss, but more importantly, celebrate the life of Marshall Edward Kresman, Menachem Mendel ben Shmuel, who we lost on Wednesday, December 11th, the 10th day of the Hebrew month of Kislev, 5785, the day following his 80th birthday. Marshall was born in Baltimore, but spent his early childhood in South Philly until his family moved to Northeast Philly. As you heard already, very proud Northeast Philly boy, around Oxford Circle. He graduated from Northeast High. Then, you already heard from Art that he went to Drexel, and then George Washington University Law School. And he went into practice and formed the law office of Marshall E. Kresman. Now, I mentioned to David before the service began, it's been bugging me. I knew the name from before, but I couldn't place it. Then it occurred to me. I was a part-time cantor for many years, a long time ago, from back in the 80s. And one of my full-time jobs during that time was at Knipes Cohen Court Reporting Service. And I remember going to that office on Street Road, delivering videos and transcripts, and I met him back then. Had no idea. It just never occurred to me, never made the connection until yesterday when I was thinking about this. So you also heard about the dance, the Jewish dance, right? And it was in the early 70s in South Jersey, and it was right out of South Pacific. That enchanted evening, across a crowded room, he spotted this young lady. And when he approached her, seeking to break the ice, he said, "Did you read about this dance in the Christian Chronicles?" She was charmed by his humor, and soon they were bonding over oldies, dancing. And the neat thing about the oldies was he loved to hear them. She loved to sing them. It's a perfect match. Within 3 months, Marshall and Jane were engaged, and on July 1st of 72, they were married. They settled down and began to create their family. They were blessed with David and Drew and Evan. And they really did mean the world to Marshall. He was completely devoted to them and was always there for them. He attended every sporting event in which they were involved, coached them and their teams, whatever the sport. Having played football during high school, and he was very proud to have been able to play basketball into his 40s. I couldn't. And understood the value of being present for his family. He was an avid Philadelphia sports fan. He held Eagles season tickets since the 90s. He also loved the Phillies, Sixers, etc. It seemed, however, in true Phillies sports fan fashion, that he was a lot happier, or comfortable, let's call it comfortable, when the teams were doing badly, because that way he had something to complain about. Though he was generally a quiet man, he had a very developed sense of humor. And once he was comfortable with anyone, he would not hesitate to send a zinger or two your way. His good-natured sarcasm and shticky humor wove its way into many family situations, and may have peaked with a particularly sarcastic speech at Evan and Meredith's rehearsal dinner, right? And although he might tease others, his humor was also frequently self-deprecating. He certainly had no problem being the butt of a joke. He had a very comfortable humor, and you already heard about the infectious laugh. It was practically a cackle, and when he laughed, you couldn't help but laugh along. Marshall was a wordsmith. He loved to use language well. He would choose words carefully, and his speech often seemed relatively formal because he loved words and actually enjoyed using them properly. He was very proud of being a graduate of GW Law School, very proud of his success, and he worked hard to what was probably most important to him outside of family, representing the underdog and seeking justice for them. He was an exemplar of generosity and care. He had many interests. He was a math whiz and taught math during the Vietnam War. He enjoyed a great variety of foods, chocolate chip bagels. That's the one I question most, sorry. I mean, I like chocolate chips. I like bagels. I don't know. Birch beer. I'm with him on that. Apples, hoagies, chocolate egg creams, pork chops. It's okay for me to say it. It's all right. And one of his quirks would be to eat something very unhealthy, but partner it with, say, cottage cheese to make it seem healthier. He also insisted that any bagel be accompanied by tomato, right? Had to have tomato with a bagel. I'm not sure if that extended to the chocolate chip bagels or not. I hope not. He loved classic cinema. I'm seeing a lot of, a lot of things in common. He loved classic cinema and frequently watched Turner Classic Movies, but he was equally comfortable watching obscure debates on C-SPAN. Who does that? You heard about his expertise in terms of Jewish geography. Well, we don't know if it was expertise, but in some cases it was. He had very unique perspectives, was a source for answers to a multitude of questions and ways of doing things, but it wasn't always easy to follow his explanations of how to do things. That was challenging. He certainly had very strong political opinions as well. I mentioned he loved words. He loved words, he loved figures, he loved facts. Opposing him in a game of Trivial Pursuit was probably not the best position in which you could find yourself. He just had one of those minds. He loved attending sporting events, but he would also happily go with Jane to a concert or the theater. And this brings me to a very important topic. Marshall and Jane were real partners in life. from her singing to the oldies that he loved to hear, to the variety of sports and entertainments they enjoyed together. They were united in life as well as in marriage. Not always the case. He taught her to play cards. They loved going out with friends. They shared tremendous love for their family. Above all, they were present for each other, and he adored her. Together, they raised a beautiful family that eventually grew to include Alyssa, Eveline, and Meredith. Then the elation of welcoming grandchildren. Alexander, William, Isabel, and Jonah. And let me just tell you, it was special to finally add a girl to the mix. But together, Marshall and Jane created a very special family who are supportive and caring. Sitting and speaking with them on Friday bore that out for me so beautifully. Marshall will be painfully missed by his entire family, by their friends, all those who knew him and were touched by him. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. His memory will be for a blessing, an ongoing blessing. And we pray that he will rest in peace. Following this service, interment will be taking place at Crescent Memorial Park, 7349 Westfield Avenue in Pennsauken, after which the family will return to observe Shiva at the residence, 9 North Woodley Drive, Cherry Hill. Services will be held 7 o'clock this evening. Tomorrow and Tuesday, visitation will be from 1 until 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and then from 6 until the conclusion of services each day, Monday and Tuesday, which will also be at 7. We now rise for the traditional morning prayer, El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hametzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Menachem Mendel ben Shmuel, Shalach le'olamo, Began Eden Tehei Menuchato. Ana Baal Harachamim, Hastirehu Beseter Kanafecha Le'olamim. Utzror bitzror hachayim, et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, v'yanuach b'shalom. Al mishkavo, v'nomar, Amen. El Malei Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Menachem Mendel ben Shmuel, Marshall Edward Kresman, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace, and let us all say, Amen. You may be seated.